organized and hosted by the Blockchain Association of Singapore. My name is Kevin, host for today. Just before we start off this webinar, just to have a kind of understanding what today is about, it's going to be a whole series, right, of webinars that we started since 2 weeks ago. The first one was the inaugural one. You'll see a familiar face here today, Howie, who was in the previous panel. He's here back with us today again. Now, we after the first inaugural panel, we are now going to have a series of panels that are very much dedicated to different angles with regards to the topic of NFTs, right? So we're going to have a panel today purely talking about, I would say, evolution of art and also the art evolution, the art market as well, with regards to NFTs, right? So how does that affected the entire industry, as well as like also how does that brought in content creators as well as traditional artists. So the topic is on that. Now, if your interest is in the area of like regulations, legal and stuff like that, we're going to have a panel 2 weeks later. That's going to be 3 hours, right? Face it, 3 hours, because you can't have anything covered for regulations and legal in just an hour. It's going to be a solid one that's going to be covered by legal professionals, as well as compliance professionals who knows the regulations, not just in Singapore, but globally as well. So stay tuned for that. If you have questions for legal, leave it for that particular panel. Today, we are just going to talk to a couple of folks that are really expert in their space, covering different angles. If you have questions about technology, I think Yasin here today, whom we shall introduce himself later on, can cover part of that. But if you're looking to deep tech and really kind of like a lot of discussion about technology, again, look out for a panel that's going to concentrate on technology providers, right? The various platform providers that can go deep dive into technology as well. So I think this is where we are, and this is how we're going to run this whole series. And after the whole series of webinars, end of it, we're going to have a couple of workshops that's going to be done, right? These are workshops for people who are pretty new to the space. At the same time, we will also be having a couple of open community forums, all right? Open discussion where it will be facilitated by various speakers that you can see from last 2 weeks ago, today and onwards in some of these panels. They will be, some of them will be volunteering to be facilitating in some of these open forum discussions as well. So stay tuned for that, right? So it's going to be lots of excitement from now to months later on the topics of NFTs, right? So there'll be more updates, there'll be more stuff that we'll be sending to you. You have registered your interest for this webinar. We have your emails, we'll be sending you updates with that. Now, without further ado, let me just quickly start off today by just giving you a primer. Let me share the screen. Okay, this outside is not done by me. Credits given to the co-chair of Blockchain Association of Singapore, Hotline. He did this primer in the previous webinar, pretty well received. It kind of like give you a very good introduction to what exactly is NFT. So again, I'm not going to delve too deep into this, right? Just to give you a taste. And for those who are really new to this space and like, have been hearing about this in the news, what exactly are NFTs, right? So let me go through that. Okay. What are exactly NFT? They are actually the short form for non-fungible token, right? It's actually interchangeable with a unit of the same thing. They are actually called fungible token. Like for instance, like you change Bitcoin to another Bitcoin, fungible, right? Bitcoin probably changing to another few units of Bitcoin is the same. Same for your dollar, right? $1 change to another dollar, it is fungible. When you talk about non-fungible, right? They are not interchangeable with one another. So if you look at the picture on the right, the black cat is not interchangeable to the colored cat, right? Same for the house. A different design of the house, you do not change with the same thing, right? These are tokens that have actually unique properties, right? That make them very different from each other, even though they may look similar, right? They have different properties. So these are considered as non-fungible tokens. Now, what are the main property of an NFT, right? They are unique, right? Each one is looking, like as mentioned before, they're different. They are rare, right? Definitely rare. You can actually trace them. There is you can trace them from the source all the way to the destination. There's provenance, which means that you can actually know what the previous, who is the previous owner, where is the source coming from. You can actually trace all that. It's indivisible. And of course, there's programmability, right? So this is something that's actually programmed into, if you're talking about blockchain, right? Blockchain, the whole idea of blockchain creates something called smart contracts. And things like that, instructions are actually kind of like inputted into smart contracts where they execute all the above, right? Where they know exactly where this particular token is going to go to, or where it's going to end up with, or what does it execute in terms of like, some properties and all that. So that's programmability. Now, so if you look on the right now, there are various arts, virtual arts that actually are using the properties of NFT to create and sell this particular art. And this is exactly what we are talking about. The one that you see there, top shot, right, is actually for basketball. So I think there was a demonstration I saw that, they actually, instead of like, for those who actually collected cards before in the past, right? Basketball cards especially, typically you'll be, 20 years ago when you buy such a packet, you'll be excitedly buying a packet and then going home, tearing out the packet and see, who do you get? Because all these are random. So now fast forward to the current times, right? Instead of actually buying such a package, which obviously people still do, they are now so-called NFTs, right? You buy a package of like, for instance, inside you have 3 unique NFTs or unique cards that are actually being on NFTs, right? When you actually open it up, the whole experience of so-called unboxing virtually is that you see who do you actually get. And now no longer is just a card, it's actually a moving video, right? You can see that basketball player executing a move that's only very much close up, you don't actually see on TV. So things like that are actually being done on NFT and they are traded at very high values. And use cases, right? As mentioned, collectibles, right? Like the baseball cards and your, and obviously the basketball cards as well. And even like on virtually, right? I think back in 2017 and 2018, there was actually a very big wave on the blockchain world or the crypto world where people actually kind of like traded or rather bought what we call crypto kitties, right? So these are like if you remember the good old days, 30, 40 years ago, people were playing with a Japanese toy called Tamagotchi, where you actually create a pet of your own, you kind of feed it and then it grows differently and all that and you take care of it, right? So in a similar concept, people actually paid money, right, in crypto, right, to buy something called crypto kitties. So these are very unique kitties. Each one of them, all of them actually look very different. You kind of like, customize them and guess what? At the end of it, you can actually sell the kitty to somebody else as a collectible. So at the highest rate, if I'm not wrong, one was actually sold for a few $100,000, right? In value, US dollars value. So things like that, right? So this is coming back again in the form of NFTs for artwork and also increasingly other collectibles as well. In the gaming world, there's always been game items, right? If you've been people playing online games, you always have game items that has always been traded for high value. Previously, it was actually traded on platform that deals in cash, but now game items are being made into NFTs, right? NFTs that represent games item, and they actually being traded, again, very quickly using cryptocurrency and stuff like that, right? For use in not just one game, but already there are certain games that are actually interoperable. So assuming you buy this particular game item in this particular game, because of the interoperability of a blockchain between games, that particular item can actually be bought over to another game where you can actually start to use it as well. So I think that has actually extended the usage of NFT in gaming. Last but not least, I think this is the real topic of today, art, right? So I think for those who have been in the news, it's been covered extensively, right? When we talk about art, it's no longer just restricted to digital art. The traditional art has gone into this as well. Photography, right? Fashion photography, landscape photography as well as like abstract photography has also got onto this space in the NFTs. So this is a big market. It has actually got a lot of traction, lots of coverage, and I think today we'll discuss about that. And other use cases like virtual assets, right? Just the other day, someone actually created a virtual house, right, on Mars. It's a virtual house, it's not real, and it's sold for a couple of $1 million, right? And this is not just the only one. Recently, there's other such cases where people create virtual houses that doesn't exist, right? Only exists in the virtual world, right? In Decentraland or even in crypto voxels, right? They have been kind of made into, NFTs as well. So people actually bid for them in millions of dollars. Now imagine if you were to tell someone 10 years ago that you are going to pay millions of dollars for a virtual house that you cannot touch, you cannot feel, you can only see it through your computer or through your phone, people wouldn't believe it. But now fast forward, yes, people are actually paying for that as well in virtual environments. Now, this is increasing. There are multiple virtual environments being created. There are also people creating not just virtual houses, they are creating virtual real estate, virtual buildings, and even virtual art galleries, right? Where you go into the virtual art gallery, you can actually start looking into such artwork in the art gallery. Now, today, one of the speakers will probably share the experience about that virtual art gallery as well. And last but not least, there has been also looking into real world assets, right? Just the other day, there was a news that in Germany, a particular house was actually sold as an NFT, right, in Germany. And this is not the only case. In Australia, there are parking lots that's being made into NFTs and they're actually being sold as a form of investment in Sydney, right? Because apparently parking lots in Sydney are very valuable, it's very expensive. People can actually make investment out of it as well. So these are some of the use cases. And looking into histories, right? This is, look at the cut on the right. No, I think some of them, I mean, all of us would probably know Homer Simpson, but they created a very unique cut called Homer Pip, right? PP, right? So this one was actually sold off for 38,500 in 2019. It's a very rare, ultra rare, one of a kind card where I think ultimately it gets sold even more when you actually start trading to someone who's waiting to pay you more for it, right? So I think this is a powerful demonstration of someone. I mean, it's a human desire, right? If you have the money, of course, to actually pay for something that only you own, and you have the boasting right and also the rights to actually tell people that you have the trophy in your hands. So increasingly, same thing for the rest of NFT artwork, same for game contents and stuff like that. So this is a history, and this is going forward, right? And it's not going to end right now. And of course, you got crypto punks, and I mentioned about crypto kitties just now, right? Some of them has been sold for very expensive, and now you look at the one on in February 2021, someone paid like $1.65 million for two crypto punks, right? Just imagine, look at that picture. It's just very simple looking picture, but someone is paying 1.65 million US dollars. Now, there were also a couple of people that created a couple of memes. The originator of memes, as in, like, you know, the picture of someone that looks silly, right? I mean, there was a couple of photographs for that, but the originator, who is actually the originator of that photo, sold that meme off for $400,000. So out of nowhere, you're creating a new wealth class of people that previously wouldn't be getting to this space, right? So I think historically things are there, and this is developing in that direction as well. So, but of course, with this new space, there are challenges. At this moment in time, the world is still, I mean, the space is still developing. Some I think access to this is inaccessible. Why? Because this is new. In order to understand this, right, you need to understand how. So how do I actually NFT my artwork, and how do I even buy the NFT artwork? How do I actually keep it, right? So this is something that and enticing the next point is a novel technology is still being developed. So I think a lot of new entrants, they want to understand how do they work on that. And of course, come into place, like, you know, with such new technology, there's tend to be fraud, tend to be scams as well. So people are, I mean, they're already scared. People that got scammed out of their money because of this. And so this is, until education is more widespread, people understand what they're doing, accessible to platforms that are more user-friendly, I think that's still a challenge, right? And of course, transactional fee. A lot of the transaction fees of actually using cryptocurrency, especially like Ethereum, right? The what we call the gas fees, the transaction fee is very, very high. So that is a prohibitive kind of, I would say, challenge to actually be indulged in this. Of course, there are other blockchain, other cryptocurrency that are actually much cheaper to actually deploy or to use. But I think this has been the one that started it all, right? So transaction fee is something to look into. Of course, the one that everybody hates to call, I mean, regulations, right? Legal and regulations, the killjoy comes into place, right? This is a place that is right now in a, I mean, starting off as a wild, wild west, where regulators are still very puzzled exactly what it is. But guess what? Increasingly, they understand this, and they'll start putting rules and regulations to regulate this particular space. How does it impact? Do not know yet, because they have not started the enforcement or even pushing off regulations. But bear in mind that this is definitely going to come. And of course, the real world linkage, right? Linking out to real art and all that. How does it work out? So I think these are some of the challenges that we are looking at. Key takeaways. The whole thing about NFT, the value of NFT is about scarcity, because a lot of items you create are actually kind of like limited in quantity, right? So that's why it boosts up value. But of course, there are cases where people claim that they only create 5 art pieces, and guess what? When they buy it, they actually created another 100 pieces as well. So there are some of these challenges, right? But I think the principle of it is scarcity, which drives value up. So I think in a nutshell, the evolution of NFT depends on eventually, bigger companies that comes in it, like Disney and gaming companies and all that, that will drive, the use of NFT into mainstream. So with that, I think I'm just going to end this very quickly on this primer. I will hand over the stage to Howie. Howie, over to you.
Hey, thanks very much, Kevin. I thought that was really, really useful, because I think everyone has a slightly different view of what this elephant called NFT is about, and hopefully that kind of sets a nice baseline for the discussion that will come. I think, guys, I think first of all, we're privileged to have a very exciting panel, very diverse, very rich experience from different parts and different aspects of the art world to join us today to talk about not just NFT, but this larger question on the evolution of art and the art market in the face of digital revolution. I think all of us know that our world has been changed. Everything from our shopping to our dining to our transport to our hotel booking, everything has a digital element to it. And then obviously now the art world is front and center with the tsunami of NFTs and digital revolution. So very excited to have our panelists. We have Shuin, who's the fair director for Art SG, previously fair director for Art Hong Kong, Ex Christie's, and the Contemporary Art Gallery as well. We have our resident tech guru, Yasin. You can tell he's a tech guru because he has a hoodie on. And he's our tech entrepreneur. He's our CSO at Minty.art. But at the same time, I believe you also have a company called Startup Token, Hyper Accelerator. We have Clara, who's a writer and a researcher in art. I read online that you were also the ambassador for the Singapore Pavilion at the Venice Biennale. So great to have you as well. And then lastly, we have Siobhan, award-winning photographer, and I like what she described. And later we'll get you to describe a little bit what you mean by a photographer turned 3D virtual model creator and an NFT artist. I love it, but I think everyone will be curious to understand a bit more about what you do as well. So a big welcome to our panelists. So perhaps what we can do is that just to kick it off is to have the panelists speak a little bit about yourselves beyond what I just described in our title. And to kick us off, this very first question, your opening thoughts on this question, since Kevin just did the primer on NFTs, you know, with the recent tsunami on NFTs, do you see it as hype? Do you see it as growth opportunities? So perhaps we'll start with Siobhan. Why don't we get going with you?
Oh man, the arrow came to me first.
Yeah. Last in, first out. Yeah.
Okay. Whether I think it's a hype or not, I mean, I guess it really depends on philosophically what you see the future will be like, right? Like personally, I see that I am part of the believer that like the future is gonna be very virtual, and that you know there is so many things that are moving towards a very virtual future where it's gonna be very much similar to the idea of Ready Player One in the metaverse. Like personally, for me, I have so many things that are already virtual. Like I have so many friends who are virtual. I have my money is now virtual. My artwork, which is my job, is also now virtual. Like basically, a big part of my life is already virtual, and for everything to move into the virtual lens itself is already like the foundation is already set, and it's just seeing how the metaverse itself is built, right? And so for me, if I do believe that's where everything is heading towards, NFTs to me is a way of portraying who you are in the virtual land. So I'm a person who likes playing video games, right? So I'm the kind that I will play video games and then I'll have my character and I'll like buy stupid outfits for my character and dress them up and I'll be like, yeah, I'm so cool because I'm wearing that outfit. And like my friends will see and they'll be like, yes, you're so cool. Or that's what I hope they say anyway. And so to me, what I believe is like NFTs is gonna be a representation of that, of your virtual character, right? Like the music NFTs that you buy, the art NFTs that you buy, the fashion NFTs that you buy, right, will all show who you are as this virtual character in the future. And therefore, if that is where it's headed towards, maybe the focus on the art NFT wouldn't be as big and hypey as it is right now, but NFTs in general, I believe will be a thing for the future. And therefore, I don't really think it's a hype.
Cool. Well, it's true. We're literally virtual right now as well. So thanks so much for. Perhaps Clara, can we come to you and get your thoughts on this?
Sure. Hi, I'm Clara. I'm an arts writer and researcher and also lecturer at LaSalle College of the Arts. So I started looking at NFTs because I was commissioned by Art and Market, a regional arts-focused platform, to look into NFTs and Southeast Asian artists and creators and how they're moving into NFTs and adopting this technology. So someone I interviewed was Siobhan. Yeah, and from there, I really just deep dived into this conversation because personally, I do believe that NFTs bring about very real technological possibilities, especially for artists who are either digital native or create works that have typically been more difficult to sell in the traditional art market. So I think that the technology does present very real improvements in accessibility and sellability for some of these artists. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks so much, Clara. Yasin, your thoughts?
Hi, everyone. I'm Yasin. Yeah. So I'm part of Minty.art, which is a NFT-powered platform pushing or bringing back the concept of patronage. So that's that's a tough question. I would say that anything that is touched by internet or reach out to internet is hyped, because we are hyper connected today. Like, every information circulates so fast that it's very easy to create a hype around the topic. I'm not very surprised by the how things are going in the NFT space, because I've been in crypto for a while, and basically hype, pump and dump have been the everyday business. Now, I believe that any adoption goes through this cycle of hype anyway. This is a revolutionary technology that is very, very powerful, and that can outreach and change lives of many people. So definitely there's a lot of traction. Now, as Kevin was saying, the first one to be at the at the upfront of innovation are scammers. So of course there will be always people with bad intentions. Now, the technology itself is really empowering the individual, empowering right now with this use case of NFT. I don't even know if we mentioned what NFT means. So just for the record, it's non-fungible token, because I hear NFT everywhere. And a lot of people also associate that to only art, which is not the case. It's a digital representation of an asset that has properties to be unique. So we are in the real world, we are kind of NFTs, everyone here. And so, yeah, there are multiple applications of this technology, and I believe that this is like this hype is showing the interest and showing the potential. I'm really excited. I hope it's gonna go in a right way. Regulators are gonna step in, as Kevin was mentioning as well, pretty soon, I think, to catch up on this craze. But also there's the factor that we're talking about money here. Intrinsically, the NFT is a vehicle that transport value. So definitely there's a lot of interest. And yeah, what I'm really excited also is by the fact that people don't talk about crypto anymore. They talk about NFT. Somehow they have accepted and adopted the technology. So that's is actually very encouraging for me.
Cool. So it sounds like together with Clara and Siobhan, you are also optimistic, but there is a sense that there may be a bit of initial pump and dump and a bit of rough roads ahead as we get to some stability. Shuin, what about you?
Hi, I'm Shuyin. So thanks for having me on this panel, Howie and Kevin. Just to give you a bit of background, so I've been working in traditional art for over 10 years. Like Howie mentioned, I was with an auction house, actually Christie's, who just had the record-breaking People sale this year. I've also been the director of an art gallery, and right now I run art fairs, so I'm in the event organization side. So as you can tell, all of this is very much premised on physical art, so painting, sculpture, but also there's elements of film, moving image, photography, and also a certain amount of digital and experiential art. But I think, I'm coming to this topic through with multiple hats or different filters, because I also used to be a former gamer. I used to work for IBM. Now I'm an NFT collector. So, because I used to enjoy multiplayer gaming, just like Siobhan, I also spent 1 hour picking out my character's earrings. So I really believe in the metaverse. I think the metaverse, it's got all these qualities associated with it in people's perception that makes it real, that makes it tangible. So for people who say that the metaverse is not comparable to real life, I would say that the people involved in the space have a very, kind of a different perspective on this. I think one of the confusions that I see in traditional art, especially for art collectors coming into this space, is exactly like what Yassine was saying. There's a lot of confusion. What is an NFT? And I think partially because of some of the reporting, partially because it's still so new. It's being used very interchangeably with artwork, minted onto the blockchain and tokenized. So, and then at the same time, it's also being confused with cryptocurrency as well because of the speculative aspect of, art in NFT form. So, trying to cut through, the hype, and is it going to be sustainable? I think blockchain is going to be extremely sustainable. It's kind of like the new internet revolution. Again, it's here to stay, especially in elements like digital security, smart contracts. I was also just looking at this project, which I don't understand a lot about, which is called Etherisk. It's basically insurance on the blockchain for farmers in Africa, for them to, kind of ease of claiming insurance during, bad harvest or something like that. And then there's all these elements, and then there's the speculation on the collectibles and the art as well. And I think this kind of speculation or hype happens on the blockchain. It happens off the blockchain. It definitely happens in the real world art market as well. So I guess, I don't have an answer to that, but it's trying to see how all these different elements resolve against one another.
Cool. Well, thanks so much, man. And thanks everyone for this initial opening thoughts, because I think everyone gets excited over it. Everyone's also trying to figure out, what's the potential next step of this potential evolution. Just for the audience, I did a simple poll on LinkedIn I just checked, about 99 people responded. 60% thinks that it is a growth potential, 40% think that it's a hype. But then again, the future is what we craft it to be. So maybe we switch gear a little bit, because I think we kind of talked about what NFT is. I think what Shuin talked about as well was also sometimes the confusion and the definition. So perhaps going back to the topic, we wanted to talk about the impact of digital on both art as well as the art market. Why don't we focus on art first, in terms of the evolution of digital art and what it really means? And perhaps if I could get the panelists to share your first encounter, what you think digital art is, and where you think digital art will go. And since Clara was the first to smile, Clara, would you like to share with us your thoughts first?
Sure. So the question is, what was my first encounter with digital art and where I think digital art will go towards?
Yes.
Okay, it's quite difficult to remember my first encounter with digital art because I've been studying art history for some time, and my research interests have been in cyberfeminism, cybernetics, net art, digital art. So I have spent some time looking at digital art, but yeah, where do I think digital art will go towards? I don't know, that is also a very, very big question, but personally, I am very interested to see how digital art will become more integrated into mainstream art world consciousness. Digital art has been around for the better part of the past 4 decades. From the very early, internet art, we see a lot of, we actually see a lot of NFT that are referencing early net art aesthetics right now. So from then onwards to, a lot of artworks that are now generative, that integrate AI technology, that make use of machine learning. As technology develops, artists are also, paying a lot of close attention to how they can integrate a lot of these technologies, a lot of new ways to play with data, a lot of new ways to experiment with digital sensibilities and putting that into their artworks. So I think digital art will continue to grow and expand as our technologies do. But I hope that with the advent of NFTs and all the conversations that we're currently having around art, on the blockchain, art in the metaverse, that it would actually lead towards digital art being better represented in mainstream art institutions and to be valued increasingly. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
I think it does, because it is to be defined, because everyone has a slightly different view of what digital art would be, and I think it's great for the audience to hear from you, and perhaps Siobhan, because you're in this space, and especially you have your 3D virtual model, it'd be great to hear your thoughts as well.
Well, I mean, I guess to me, digital art is whatever art that becomes on a digital platform, I guess. So even when I did photography, I I started with digital cameras. I was never part of the film era, right? Like, so like even then, was it digital art? Probably, because it's already digital. But I think with the evolvement of technology, I think digital art is gonna be very exciting, because like there's generative art, there's AI art, and there's also like there's so many more things that you can do in the digital space that you can't do in the physical space. Like for my 3D models, I can do stuff like I can put my models in space because they don't have to breathe. And, I don't have to worry about gravity because who needs that? So like when it comes to the digital things, right, like there's just so much more freedom. And I think with the technology that comes along with it, like there's also more involvement of like the art itself can evolve into more things. Like there's this platform called Async where you can basically spread your art out into layers, and it depends on the buyers who buys what layers, and that art form becomes a bit different. And it's just so cool that you create the art and it evolves as it gets bought by people, and this is only possible because it's digital. It's made digital, and also there is the technology now that helps it evolve. So I don't know, I think it's all very, very exciting, like the idea of VR, the idea of AR. Yeah, exciting.
Cool. And Shuin, because you ran a gallery and you've seen the fairs, what are you seeing as the evolving definitions of what digital art is?
Well, firstly, I think digital art is so broad, like Siobhan was saying, it could be digitally manipulated photography. I also have friends who are animators. I think, one of the main issues is that there seems to be previously a separation between what was considered, high art, proper art, and then digital art was considered something which was more for the masses rather than for collecting. And I think that also ties into the issue of the usage of technology and additioning. Before the whole blockchain, came about, it was considered uncollectible because of the issues of additioning, replication, all of that. But I think where we are just in terms of art and technology is that it's become a lot more experiential. It's not just on the screen. It's it's become immersive as well. You can do really big, interesting installations with AR, VR, light sensors, all that kind of thing. I think there's also been a closing of the gap that did not consider digital art as kind of proper art for art collecting, especially with things like TeamLab, the Kusama Infinity Rooms, entering the kind of museum landscape as well. And now it's kind of, finally been elevated into that, or I would say fast forwarded into that space where collectors look at it as a really viable addition to an art collection. So I think that's really interesting.
The viability. I think what you mentioned kind of struck me in that traditionally people would see that, hey, look, if it's an oil painting, it's a sculpture, is seen as classic art or high art, and then everything else that my kid doodles on the iPad is perhaps not art, but that definition could potentially be changing. Yasin,
Can I jump in for that?
Sure.
Sorry, just jumping into that. I think it's definitely very interesting because I've only been in the NFT space for about 2 months now, but I've been meeting a lot of different artists, and all of us come from backgrounds where we work for clients, like very commercialized. Like as a photographer, I've always worked for like brands, clients. Even the personal work that I did was in mind of for clients that they would see my work and want to hire me for it, right? And like there are so many other creatives out there who would never categorize as artists. Like there were like so many illustrators, graphic designers, and all of them are creatives, but like we were never in the art world. And like now being in the NFT space has given us a chance to be in the art world, and I think it's very interesting because like we have never had somebody collect our art before. We have never earned money from doing really personal work before, and I think it's very freeing. There's a lot of freedom that's given to all these creatives to really now experiment more than they usually would, because there's just more eyes and more appreciation for it now. So yeah.
Cool. Justin, perhaps if I can not just get your thoughts, but also layer an additional part. As your thoughts on do you see beyond NFTs and blockchain, the other types of technology or digital trends that's impacting the art ecosystem as well? But first, your view in terms of what the definition and your experience with digital art, where it's headed and the technology trends.
Okay, so yeah, to put things in perspective and also to clarify, I think we really need to talk about definitions here because again, for the audience, it might be confusing because we talk about crypto, we talk about NFT, we talk about art, we talk about digital art, and it seems that we are using the terms to mean different things, and the perception also of these meanings is different from whoever listened to our conversation. Because in my opinion, digital art, as Clara was saying, it's been there for decades. What is different today, what the crypto layer brings, is that we can code the value associated to that asset. So because we are entering into a digital age, I mean, we are already in it, but it's accelerated by the pandemic that is going on in the world right now. We have this world, this metaverse that is becoming more like a reality. It's sometimes even there's more things happening, as also Siobhan was saying. I would distinguish here. I wouldn't say my friends are virtual. I would say they're just digital. They are all avatars now. Okay, we are having this conversation using digital technology. We're not having conference meeting each other. So things are happening digitally. And now there's a new layer coming that is enabling, in addition to transferring the information, to transfer the value. And it's all about the story. Again, like we believe that the piece of paper was value, and that if I give you a piece of paper, there's a nice picture of a queen, of a king, then it has value. Today, we agreed in this, the story is that if I give you a Bitcoin, I'm giving you value. If I'm giving you an NFT, I'm transferring you art and the NFT, the asset, the vehicle, because this is exactly what an NFT is. An NFT is a simple digital vehicle that enables to transport the value. And we all agree upon this. We believe this, okay? Somebody is ready to pay $69 million, not the JPEG, but the NFT. The NFT is that vehicle that encapsulates the image, the signature, the authenticity, the traceability, all these information that needed like hundreds of people to be able to, to organize and to transfer. Now it's all embedded in a code of a smart contract. Okay, and that's the power. And so this is what the layer of crypto is bringing, the layer, and it's bringing it to art right now. Okay, and that's what I think I would like to, why I wanted to precise that digital art is a form of art. Crypto is bringing just an additional feature that now enables this transfer of value.
Encoding the value, basically.
Absolutely, it's encoding the value, and it's enabling anyone around the world with access to internet to be part of the game. Because the world of art, I was not a collector before really the world of art merged with the world of crypto. I was a crypto enthusiast. I was investing in, I'm still investing in projects. I'm building my own project thanks to crypto and the blockchain technology. And I'm having this outreach that was not possible before. And it's exactly what's happening today with artists. Artists now are basically selling their art to crypto holder or crypto enthusiast. We were looking at the numbers that are crazy, like 60 million, etc. For people to understand why is it like 60 million is because what happened is that you should not look at the value in dollar, but you should look at the value in ETH. For some people, 1,000 ETH, that is today roughly what, $2 million, was maybe $500 or $50. for some tokens, they were like, I was at the ICO of Ether. It was 50 cents, 1 ETH, right? So this is why numbers are crazy when you look at them in dollar. But if you look at them in ETH, in the cryptocurrency, from the cryptocurrency perspective, the value is not that big. So that's why it's really, yeah, you know, there's like this difference between what people see in dollars and what crypto enthusiasts are seeing. So in terms of, I was just wanting to finish on this. Like today, the opportunity is that people that have been involved in crypto for years now are obviously rich now, and this is actually the target today. Today, so artists are selling to crypto enthusiasts, to crypto holders. Tomorrow, it's gonna be a real estate agent that's gonna sell assets, so houses, in a form of NFTs, and you know, it's not gonna end until the whole world has been translated or like transferred to this metaverse, and this will become the reality. I'm a bit afraid of this, frankly. I love this industry. I love the power of this technology, but I don't want to live behind a computer with goggles, you know, on my ears, or on my eyes. Sorry. But yeah, I hope I answer. Like I wanted to put things, you know, like frame a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. So if I just move it a little bit more on the other question, it says that. Where do you see the other technology trends as impacting this whole art ecosystem beyond NFTs as a encodement of value?
I mean, we were mentioning AI. It's another. It's definitely something that I actually don't really master. I'm really impressed by what I see. You know, there was an AI that minted a token, I think, like a year ago, and or like created an artwork. So maybe it was not sold as an NFT, but yeah, like what are going to be the limits here? Who, first of all, who was paid for this artwork? I don't know. The AI received money. Like, does that AI have a bank account? How was it? I don't really know the story, but yeah, I mean. We have so much going on in terms of development, in terms of innovation, because we have very strong foundations. Like internet is this robust technology on top of which a lot of things is happening, and because there's this degree of liberty, that yeah, everybody can come and can, you know, build a tool and expose it to 1 billion people out there and create a community and accelerate the development. So art today is benefiting from NFT, from crypto. It's benefiting already from AI. I don't know like what's going to be next, but just these two, you know, powerful technology will bring so much value and empower both sides, creators and collectors.
Can I just jump in here also? There's some, you know, just to kind of add on, but it would be great to get Yassine's thoughts. The other thing that I think crypto has brought to art is transparency. You know, when an art is transacted on a platform, the entire transaction is captured publicly. So there, you know, compared to the traditional art world where I hear a lot, there's a lot of kind of, you know, that the price can be a bit mysterious, finding out how much an artwork costs, how much finding about previous transactions. In terms now, an artwork is on a blockchain, everything is completely public. I don't quite understand the technology there, so maybe that's something Yassine can explain to us as well.
Okay, so it's very hard to explain things related to crypto because yeah, we need to find just like the right vocabulary. So just to say, maybe a short answer would be, you know, removing this opacity. You were saying, yeah, like bringing transparency. I think like it's a different way to say it, but basically, I was talking to an artist the other day. He was telling me about the story of that lady based in Africa. It was an artist. She created an artwork that was purchased for $20,000. For her, it was, you know, like the biggest income she could ever get. But she saw that it was resold on a marketplace, traditional one, maybe Christie's, Sotheby's, you know, for like more than $1 million. And that's the thing that is happening. Today, there is no, like, the artist is put in front of the collector. Like, there is the removal of all those intermediaries that enable the connection, and where the market is made, and there's like a fake value that is created that is not redistributed to the original creator. But now the technology enabled to remove this opacity and bring together the supply and the demand. So now technically how it works, I don't know how deep I need to go, but you know, basically the blockchain is just a ledger. It's really just a ledger that shows all the transactions that are happening, and it's super easy to once you get it, it's very easy to track any type of information. And right now, if you go on an Explorer, if you go on OpenSea, if you go on Rarible, they are all like all those platforms, and Minty soon. They are basically just Explorer showing you what happened. You have A that sold an asset to B, and that's the transaction you can track. And then, you know, like all those transactions are readable. Those Explorer enable to have it in a more human-friendly way to read this information. But that's really the big innovation, is that we have a public ledger. And I'm insisting on the term public because nowadays nothing is public. All our institutions are working with private databases that are in silos. You tell me when I need to stop, Howie, because you know I can really go for hours.
No, I'm looking at everyone's faces to see whether I see a look of understanding or a look of
So I use public ledger, so I was trying to not, you know, like I hope it's comprehensive and really stop me.
No, but I think it's an important point, because the end of the day, I think it sounds like, you know, while we talk about NFT, digital has impacted in many different ways, including AI distribution, and hold the thought regarding transparency, because we should talk about the art market in a while and the intermediaries and the platforms that's available. But perhaps at this point in time, I just wanted to, we have a couple of questions online, but also encourage the rest of the attendees. You have questions, feel free to put it up under the Q&A. We'll try and answer it as much as we can. Having said that, perhaps if I could go to Clara, because since we talked a little bit about AI, you had an interesting article and interview regarding AI with one of the artists. Perhaps you could bring us into what the conversation was about. But if I could also trouble you to answer Mohammed's question, do we classify physical artwork that has been digitally copied to be considered digital art?
Sure. So to answer the question, if it is the case of a physical artwork that has, for example, been photographed into a digital image, I think a lot of artists would argue that that is not a digital artwork, rather that's the digital image of the physical artwork. However, if it is a physical artwork that then has a digital component to it, for example, you know, maybe there is a physical painting, but maybe there's a QR code, which is a physical manifestation that then links to a digital component, be it a video or something that uses digital technology, then that can perhaps be constituted as digital art. So that's my personal take on it. Shuin, I don't know if you have anything to add on there.
Yeah, when I saw that question, I thought it's as much, I mean, how would you approach a photograph of yourself? Is that you? That question.
Yeah. So, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Clara.
Okay, I was just going to continue into the first part of your question, which was on the article that I did with a Chinese contemporary artist. Her name is Ye Funa, and last year she created an artwork that is a AI kind of mechanism. It exists now as a web page. So it's called Dr. Corona. So you can go on right now to give it a try if you want, but essentially she fed the AI with a lot of phrases that she lifted from the internet and created this machine that could answer. It was basically a language bot, an AI bot. Yeah, so she basically created that in response to the coronavirus, so that whenever people were feeling anxious about, their confusion relating to the pandemic, that they had this language bot to interact with that actually mimicked and parodied a lot of language that was being used on the internet. So it was kind of self-referential as it exists also as a net art project.
Cool. Siobhan, it looked like you had a comment or wanted to jump into something. It's difficult trying to read facial expressions on a Zooming call, but I think if I try and frame it in my own head based on Yasin's explanation and what you guys are sharing, is that the impact of technology cuts across from the whole creation process to the encodement of value process as well as the distribution process, because it looks like it's now embedded in many parts of it and is redefining perhaps some of our original perceptions of what art is, where art may be headed. And if we touch a little bit more on AI, I remember that, was it last year, the year before, there was a AI generated portrait, I think to Siobhan's earlier point about generative art and AI created art. And that went for 400,000+, I think it was Christie's as well. Then the question is that, how do we attribute value? Was it the algo that created the value? Should the coder be the IP owner of that art? Or should it be the artist who came out with the idea? Or should it be the database of portraits that was used to create that piece of art? So I suspect some of these will be questions that will continue to be evolving, because I like Shuin's simple way of asking. It says, the photograph of me, is it me? And I don't know, perhaps there will be a world that each of us will have multiple identities, the physical identity as well as the virtual one. But perhaps we'll switch gear a little bit, because there's a couple of questions related to art market and potentially challenges within it. So if I could maybe then switch gear a little bit to say that as with every industry that has been disrupted by tech, the middleman and the value chain has shifted. So think of the way we used to book hotels, now it's changed. The way we used to book taxis has changed. The way we shop has changed. So there is, in the current world, there are intermediaries and big boys like Christie's and Sotheby's and many others. It would be great to hear the panel's view in terms of where do you think the shift of this world will head to? Will we see new middlemen? Do we see a real opportunity with the increased transparency for artists to go directly to the potential collectors and buyers? How does it impact the buyers and the sellers of art? So it's a big area, but I think there's quite a fair bit of interest to see how the evolution of that, the market. And Janet has a question on, as you think through this, whether there's a secondary market for NFT art as well. Anyone would like to take on this rather large question?
Ladies first, but
oh, that's a good one, Yasin.
No, but I could definitely talk about this. So let me jump in. So once again, I come from the. I'll use a lot the perspective of crypto, what it's bringing to the world of art today. I hear a lot of artists saying they are amazed by the sense of community that there is right now in the NFT space. And this is something that is actually brought by the crypto aspect of NFT, of like whatever crypto art, because what this new web is bringing, going back to the basics of the technology. So if you look at Bitcoin, Bitcoin relies on a community. It works in a way where the idea is that the value is in the community. So it's normal that it would be shared among the community and it would be governed by the community. So I think what was brought with the vision of Bitcoin is this a user-centric internet where the community takes power back. You were talking about the big guys, and the Web 2 is the internet of the big guys. When I talk Web 2, trying to not be very technical, it would be like the web of Facebook, the web of Google, the web of all those big corporations that basically, in exchange of our privacy, give us convenience. We don't know it, but we are the product of these platforms. And the resource is the data. So they're monetizing the data, and we get access to some services, right? So there was this model, and the value was captured by those big guys. Today, there's this new vision, this new proposition where basically we say, okay, guys, we have enough resources among ourselves to build a community and build a system. Blockchain comes here to enable the governance, to enable the coordination, and the distribution of value, including so consensus mechanism. So consensus meaning that just like agreement, like how people decide on things, in a most transparent and in the fair way. So those principles were brought today to the world of art, and so now people are seeing that the community is like the power of this community, and so collectors are merging with creators. Creators are also collecting, and they are also creating. So there is like, you know, the power of the community is that there's this empowerment that is happening, and so that's the beauty, and that's what creators, artists are seeing today. They're seeing a very helpful community that help them to cross this Rubicon River by, you know, adopting how to use a wallet. How do I get some crypto? How do I mint? And these information are brought to them by the community, by these collectors, and also by other artists. And so there's like a different interaction, and that's what surprised the artist. And I'm really thrilled to see this, you know, this empowerment. And
so if I get you to hold the thought on the empowerment to the artist. So Siobhan, I see you as an artist. What's your thoughts on this? Whether you see that shift in empowerment and the role of middlemen in this evolving space?
Well, I mean, like, it's a bit hard for me to say in that sense because I've never really been in the art world, right? Like, being in the art world is a very new thing for me. So like, I had never had to work with like galleries and all of that. So like, but I mean, I've talked to artists and they'll be like, oh, we have worked with galleries that take up to 60% of the cuts, and like now we are going straight to collectors and like, and for digital work too, and like it's pretty cool. So I guess there's empowerment in the sense in that like there's no longer reliance on the middleman. But I mean, the problem is, I think that as wonderful and helpful as the community is, it's also a very, very, very large community, and it's very hard to be seen, especially nowadays on Twitter. On Twitter is basically like shouting to the void. Like there is a huge community who's gonna help out, but like you can post your stuff, but like it's really hard to get attention nowadays. So like I could see that like middleman people start to come in to help out artists who don't know how to promote themselves. I mean, personally, I would rather artists learn how to promote themselves, but like there are gonna be artists who are just like, I just want art, and like, and then they'll look for middle people to do all the other promoting stuff. So I don't know. I guess I guess the artists now have the option to say like, I either want to do it myself and I can, or I can choose to have somebody else. It's no longer the only way in is through the galleries and through the middleman management. So yeah.
Okay, got it. Shuin, you've been across many parts of the art ecosystem, from the auction house to the gallery to art fair. What's your thoughts of how it will evolve?
Yeah, you know, I think this was one of the kind of very interesting questions that have kind of come up with this whole, you know, development of NFT. I mean, personally, I do think decentralization and accessibility is a big plus. You know, I think it's great. But that said, you know, when you think about kind of the intermediaries in the traditional art world, such as auction houses, galleries, private dealers, there has been a legacy in terms of why they're around, why they exist. You know, it's hundreds of years old. I would say these middlemen, contrary to common perception, they are not just there to broker a sale. They actually create structure. They also, bring certain assets to this value creation system that's wrapped around an artist. Galleries traditionally invest heavily in the artists that they represent. They provide this kind of support system for the artists in areas where, which are not the artist's forte. They also kind of, how would I say, art is essentially, the different elements, visual, perceptual, experiential, and a gallery helps translate all those elements from the artist to the collector in that sense. So, just in terms of being part of the ecosystem surrounding and supporting the artists, I think they're really, important. And when I looked at some of the questions being thrown up in the NFT space, there are a lot of comments about, hooray, no more middlemen, artists go straight to collectors. I've also seen a lot of artists floundering and asking on public channels, how many editions do I mint? Is open editions a good idea? Should I do a 1/1, 110, 150? Open editions for 15 minutes, 1 hour. And sometimes they're getting pretty bad advice, I think, how to price. So I don't think the so-called middlemen or advisors are going to be eliminated entirely. I think they will transition. I say this with caution. I'm not sure if it's for good or bad. The other thing, I was just talking to Clara about this. We were having coffee on Monday. I think some of the platforms in the NFT space are actually replacing the role of the galleries in the ecosystem, in that the biggest platforms get the most eyeballs, kind of like Christie's and Sotheby's. I mean, I know personally there are 1 or 2 platforms that I browse more regularly just because they're bigger setups, the interface is cleaner, there's more users on it, so there's a greater volume. So I think we're not looking at middlemen going away. I think we're just looking at kind of an evolution here in terms of the people interfacing between the artists and the collectors. I do think that it's very important that artists get royalties for their work. So I think that's a real plus.
Cool. Thanks, Shuin. Clara, perhaps we can come to you for your thoughts. And in the meantime, we go to Clara, if I could ask the rest of the panelists to think about the couple of questions that are out there. There's one from Henry that's under the answered, but I think we haven't really answered it. The question was around, how do we prevent unscrupulous artists from stealing and replicating digital arts that's not popular yet? It means I go out there, plug something, and I NFT the bugger and then hope to sell it. And then the second question in the open tab from Chuck regarding where can you virtually experience, Shuin, your question about visual, perceptual, and experiential, experiencing the art in the virtual world. How do you experience the art?
Sorry, so, I'm lost. I can't see the question. Can you repeat it for me?
Oh, the question, you go to the Q&A little.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so there's one.
Anywhere virtually we can, there's a lot of.
No, before you go, I'm going to go to Clara for the.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so but think about it first. Clara, since Shuin mentioned that you guys had a chat, what's your thoughts on the earlier question?
Yeah, I have so many thoughts actually, but to start with, I very much agree with what Shuin has said. I see this playing out in an NFT platform called Hekak-Nunk. So it runs on Tezos. Siobhan knows that I am very, very much a fan of this platform. So this platform is a bit more niche in that it's much newer and has perhaps a slightly smaller collector base compared to the platforms that currently run on Ethereum. However, because the gas fees on this platform are very low, so we see a lot of artists using this as a space to experiment and also to list their works either for free or for much lower prices, which is great in that it encourages a lot of community sharing, a lot of community building and swapping your artworks just for art's sake. But at the same time, because most big collectors are not yet on these more alternative platforms, so artists often talk about, should I start minting on Hekak-Nunk or should I stick to my Ethereum platform, Super Rare, Foundation, and I guess soon Mintable, right? So the conversation there remains that, you know, being on a particular kind of platform gives you access perhaps to different types of collectors and collectors with different tastes and willingness to spend and invest time in getting to know different kinds of creators. So in that sense, I think you start to already see this intermediary role come into play. Yeah, so that's the first thing that I wanted to say. The second thing, and you know, surrounding the conversations that we've been having about a lot of digital creators, artists entering this space, as Siobhan said, many of whom may be a bit lost because this is their first kind of foray into the art setting where, you know, you're rarely representing yourself for the first time and have to tackle these questions of, like Xuan mentioned, how many editions should I list? How should I price myself so I'm not undervaluing myself and I can protect the longevity of my artworks in my career, and to really invest yourself in your practice. So I really encourage, you know, creators entering the space to also look at the art world and the art market as a parallel. Oftentimes these questions that come up, you can see parallel cases of them playing out in the art market. For example, you know, I think a quite common typical case could be Damien Hirst, who quite famously kind of overpopulated his own art supply when he took quite a large number of his works directly to the secondary market, after which coincided with the kind of financial crisis of that year. The prices across his art market kind of tanked. And then afterwards, him and his gallery had to, you know, start doing a lot of different exhibitions, a lot of different kinds of efforts to then kind of limit his supply and bring up his market pricing alongside a lot of education, a lot of promotion to once again bring back market interest in his value. So I think you have all these cases in the more traditional, I like that we're calling the contemporary art market traditional now. You see a lot of these case studies in the contemporary art world play out. And I think NFT creators and artists can really look towards these as pointers for how they can protect themselves, even though I know we're in the metaverse, but some of these rules and logics can still apply. The last thing that I also want to say is that, oh my God, I have forgotten because I have said so many things. Yes, but that was the last thing. Maybe let's move forward and we can come back to me when I recall.
No, thanks so much.
Can I just jump in here to say one thing? This is something I forgot to mention earlier. I think, you know, in the traditional, a lot of collectors have, they believe in the bigger kind of, you know, space like auction houses and galleries like Christie's and Sotheby's, because there's an inference of quality control. There is this understanding that if you purchase an artwork through one of the bigger galleries or the auction houses, there has been a process of review by experts who really understand the work, the history. They have spent long hours talking with the artist or the collector. Therefore, when you acquire a work through these, you know, through these auction houses and galleries, you are acquiring something that has been validated by the structures of the art world. And I think increasingly, like what I was saying about the platform, some of the bigger platforms are known now to have this artist review process before an artist is listed on the platform. So this kind of value is also translated equally.
So it's a validation of value as part of.
Yeah,
So maybe if I could just summarize this set of discussion, because it sounds like what the technology has done is that it has, through its transparency and empowerment and its direct connectivity, create a viable self-channel. But I think to Siobhan's point, discoverability, it's not easy as well. I mean, my own experience, I put up something in OpenSea, and after a lot of fuddling around, the only people who have gone and see my NFT photograph are myself and my friends. No one's bought anything. So there is still a value of a value chain and a middleman, whether the middleman becomes the e-Christie's or has new players. I think that depends on the value they are able to create to the art market, to the buyer, as well as to the seller. So I think that kind of seems to be, it's still ultimately what's the value you create to the whole chain. Technology just kind of greases it. So if I could maybe then
Sorry,
jump
actually, can I just come back?
Yes,
I
Clara.
finally recall what I wanted
Yes.
to say. So my last point was actually that, NFTs and the ability for NFTs to refer to artworks, artists who are specifically working with NFTs, they have also been around for quite some time. However, NFTs had only really entered mainstream artwork consciousness with the Christie sale, and then followed by the Sotheby's and Phillips sale. So I think with that, you see that these large art world institutions are still very much relevant and critical in the larger art ecosystem. They still have this role to play. So I think that's actually a very, very important thing. And the bright side of it, though, is that I think more and more NFT platforms are also beginning to be cognizant of how important it can be, or how useful it can be to bring about more, curatorial kind of work to their platforms, or to introduce their artists, to really feature them. For example, if you look at more curated platforms like Super Rare, there's a particular editorial section that is dedicated to writing about the artist. I'm currently in conversations with an NFT platform that is trying to really think about how to introduce art historical context to situate the artworks of the NFTs listed on their platforms within the larger art conversation, which is, I think, some of the work that, as Xuan mentioned, traditional galleries have really invested in doing, so they can promote their artists and put them within that conversation and increase the kind of, I guess, historical value that they can bring to the table as well. So we do see some of that work starting to come into play. Yeah.
Right. Thanks so much, Clara. So perhaps we'll use the rest of the time to try and answer some of the questions. We've got quite a number, but I think some of it has been automatically moved to the answered portion, but I don't think we really touched it. So perhaps I could invite the panelists to look at the Q&A box, but look at the answer tab first. There's a question from Chuck regarding physical world. We can hang our paintings. How do we appreciate our virtual art? That's one question. There's two questions from Bill that we kind of touched on, but I think it'd be good to have a direct view. Good idea or not to sell the same NFT on multiple markets? And if it's bought on one, is it delisted?
Okay.
I answered the questions
answered those questions online.
I answered those questions. Yeah.
So we can focus on the open questions right now. Yep. So
okay.
I mean, some of them I answered to some of them. I'm not that fast typing, so sorry about that.
But let's answer the open questions. I think there are 3 right now on the chat box. There are a few more that's on the Q&A box rather. There are other questions that's actually on the chat box, but let's settle the one on the Q&A first. Yeah.
Can I just mention something about displaying virtual art? I'm actually very excited by the technology now in virtual frames I think there's one called infinite objects or something else, but that you can even attach your wallet now, so that you can only display the NFTs that you own. You can't just copy somebody's digital art and put it on your digital frame. So there's quite a lot of interesting development in that space.
Great, thanks for that sharing. So let's answer the question on the Q&A box. Yep.
Do you want to read the question so like that we all focus on the same question?
So
yeah, so perhaps we can take the last one first, which is would a technological revolution of the established way of how art is valued bring less bias to the artist? There's quite a few ways you can interpret that question, but I think given that this is an art session, you can answer it in whichever way you interpret it. Clara, this may be up your alley.
All right, so the question is, would a technological revolution of the established way of how art is valued bring less bias to artists? I think, going back to what we've been talking about with blockchain being this decentralized open ledger data, where technically anyone can kind of track and trace the transactions that occur, there's going to be much less opacity to art pricing. And in the traditional art market, there's a lot more asymmetric information between the larger players, that, because a lot of sales might happen in private sales, the information might never be made public. Provenance can often be quite difficult to track. Now that a lot of this data can potentially be made more accessible to public if they are utilizing blockchain technology, it might be just better for this conversation, just because more of us will have access to this data in the public realm. Yeah, so I guess theoretically, I suppose so, but art pricing in itself is, I think it's a very difficult science as well as art form. So I suppose that is still to be determined.
Cool, thanks, Clara. There is a question. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to add to what Clara said, that the technology enabled basically to create a market for anything. When I say the technology, I talk about blockchain technology with the emergence of what we call decentralized exchanges. And what is very helpful here is that there's a way for the first time to really use the power of the market forces to generate a price discovery. So an artist could really push a price on his art, submit it to the community, and then he sees if the price is good or not, and if people want to buy it or not. But he's not attached to any kind of regulatory framework or any kind of requirement. He just create art, push it on those marketplaces, and see where it goes. So that's for the first time there's this way. It's similarly to have your own studio as an artist and open the door and put your art out there and see you just people come and want to pay a price and you negotiate. But that's, at least it's a way to bring a price to the market and then let it play by itself without any kind of intervention. Of course, there's always, influencers that come and create hype, around any type of assets. And in crypto is very, very easy. But yeah, and as Clara was saying, all this transparency that is brought thanks to technology enables really to, first of all, to identify the authenticity, which is something that is not enough, I think, understood here. But basically to answer to that, it's possible to copy art from someone and put it on another marketplace, for example. There are a lot of things, there are a lot of steps that have to be put in place to have a secure system. Today, we're relying on all those avatars that are created. All those are, you really don't know who you're talking to, especially in the Web3. In the web of blockchain, people are identified by their wallet, by a public key. I can create as many, public key as I want. I can create wallets and do some, market making, like what we call wash trading between myself. I pretend like the transaction happened, yeah, there's a lot of things that could happen. But what is essential is that there are tools to reduce the fraud. But it requires that people put in place best practices, and that takes some time. So for example, we are encouraging a lot artists now to create what we call a ENS. So ENS is proper to Ethereum. What it means, it's Ethereum naming system. So with this technology, you basically can create, so Siobhan can create siobhanwong.eth, and that would be her public address. And every time she's going to mint an asset, it would be from this unique wallet address. And that would be her digital signature. So every time someone wants to really make sure that it's her that minted the token, they can go to the minting, to the generation of that asset, of that NFT, and see that it was created by siobhanwong.eth from that wallet. So these are best practices that have to be put in place. so people are sure that they're buying from the right, source.
So I'm mindful we have 8 minutes left. So let's try and answer a few questions, and then as part of closing. So if I could request perhaps, Yasin, if you can help us with Lee's question regarding security. Is there secure storage for digital files? And then thereafter, we'll jump to Siobhan, Clara, and Shuin to answer Sinki's question, which is kind of related to the number one question regarding trends and energy and whether you see additional financial support. Because I think those two questions, Sinki's question as well as the anonymous one, would be great places to end, because the question is about, do you see a shift? Do you see a shift on the investment point of view? Do you see a shift from an artist point of view? Do you see a shift in terms of the financial point of view? So we'll come to that. But first, let's have Yasin just share your thoughts regarding secure storage.
Okay, so the secure storage, obviously blockchain enables the best way to secure things. It's to distribute the information. So right now, what is used as the underlying storage system in blockchain is called IPFS. So it's basically a way to distribute the data among multiple servers around the globe, and anyone can be part of this structure. So it's because there's no one central point of of storage that could be the point of failure. The data is robustly secured. So there is no, and this is what all the platforms are using. And cool. Just to understand that, if any kind of platform collapse tomorrow, the NFT has been minted on the blockchain and lives on the blockchain.
Yes,
so
yeah.
OpenSea disappear, Rarible disappear, the asset itself is still stored, is still there.
Cool. Answer is yes, Lee.
Yeah, sorry, the answer was yes.
So Siobhan, perhaps we'll start with you first. The question of where do you see the shifts, where do you see the trends? And then we'll have Clara, and then Shuin, you can help us wrap up for the evening.
Well, I mean, like, for the trend injecting new energy and financial support, right? Like, yeah. I would say for the artists, I have definitely seen a lot of new artists being very much energized at the fact of like NFTs allow them to do a lot of personal work to experiment and actually have a chance of getting paid at it. And like, I've seen a lot of artists just get like, wake up more motivated to do their work. So there's definitely a lot more motivation and energy in that sense. Financial support, I mean, they are collectors, so that's kind of cool. Well, yeah, but like, when Singti, he says like, how do you see the shift of investors' appetite from traditional fine art to NFT happening? Most investors just follow where the money goes, right? Like wherever there's money, there they are. And right now there is money in the NFT space. So I see more and more people coming to the space, especially since like, it's still very new in Asia. So like people are trying to find out more about it. There's more hype in the West. There's like celebrities getting involved in it, getting more and more people in the mainstream aware of NFTs. So like as people find out more about it and there's more hype, naturally I think investors who are forward thinking would want to at least find out what this hype is all about. As for artists moving away from traditional art to digital art, it really depends. I think for me, it's like I know a lot of like I've talked to a few people who are like, oh, but I don't like I do 2D art. I don't know how to do 3D. Is 3D more popular or stuff like that? And to me, it's just like I've been a photographer for 10 years, but if you ask me, am I just a photographer? I believe I'm more of a creative artist. I like to do creative stuff. So like photography was just a medium for me, right? So coming to 3D, like it was just an extension of figuring out what else I can do with my creativity. And I believe like I feel like I know there are gonna be painters, oil painters who do beautiful physical work, but I hope that they also can see that like the digital is not a competition, but something that they can even do even more creative stuff with and be open to trying out new mediums to really experiment and explore their art form, because in the end they are creative, right? And they have a creative eye. And I believe like all of these are just tools, and that if they take away the labels of the tools of like I'm a painter, I'm a photographer, and just be a creative, I hope they can just enjoy what the new tools can give them and be able to explore the digital forms of like art itself.
Cool. I think that's a great way of framing it because the paintbrush has just changed, but it is still about creativity. Clara, your thoughts on where the key shifts and trends would be?
Yeah, I actually want to say that, I think it's very important for us to be cognizant that NFTs itself isn't always the medium. So in most cases, artists, for example, for Siobhan, her medium is either 3D rendering, previously it was photography, but NFTs is the distribution channel, that platform that allows her to list her work, to sell it on, and to track the transactional records referring to this artwork on the blockchain. But in this case, the NFT itself is not the medium. So in that sense, a lot of the works that we are currently seeing, populating the NFT marketplaces were works that didn't really require NFTs as a technology itself to exist. However, they are perhaps, gaining a lot more visibility, a lot more sellable, and have access to this new collector base through NFTs itself as a platform. So I think to follow that kind of that train of thought, I do think that NFTs can perhaps, bringing more attention, more interest into the art space. For example, with the recent conversations around NFTs and arts in the space, you see a lot of crypto native collectors coming into the scene and participating in this conversation, right? With the Beeple Christie sale, Christie's reported that 91% of the people who registered for that sale were new to Christie's. So they had not previously participated in any other auctions at Christie's, even though they may have been paying attention before. But that NFT sale in particular was what got them, through the threshold and into the door. So I think, yes, it can bring in a lot of new energy and perhaps new financial investment, and we're seeing that already. But in terms of how it will shift the creative directions for artists and creators, I think that has to that would have to be up to how much they interact with the platform of NFTs itself. And it also depends on the mediums that they are playing with.
Cool. Thanks so much, Clara. And Shuin, last but definitely not least, as we wrap up the session, your closing thoughts.
Yeah, I will just keep this brief. I was looking at the question and how do you see the shift in investors' appetite? I want to respond to this question, not in terms of investors, but in terms of collectors. I don't think traditional art and NFTs are mutually exclusive. I think if you are a collector and you love art, you will be looking at art across all mediums and trying to think about how you can engage with it, how you can collect it. NFTs have added an extra layer of collectability to digital art. But I was also looking at, the Christie sale, the top two bidders were Metacoven and Justin Sun. The Sotheby's sale, which happened on Nifty Gateway, nearly all the bidders for the main two works were crypto native collectors. So I think there's still a fairly big gap for collectors, from the traditional space to move into NFTs. I think it's going to be an interesting, interesting progress ahead. And I think, they just have to work in symbiosis. We just have both people, the ecosystems on both sides of the spectrum have to work hard to bring the attention of art to more collectors and buyers. It doesn't happen on its own. Shifts of artists moving away, traditional arts, same answer. We have wonderful painters and sculptors who have 20, 30 years of practice. They are impeccably trained. Their work is absolutely amazing, and we need to raise awareness for artists who are doing good work. It doesn't matter what the medium is.
Cool. Thanks so much. And I think maybe just as a wrap up, I think I represent all the participants to thank all our panelists. I think it's a rare treat and wonderful opportunity that we have a art researcher, we have an artist, we have a art ecosystem and a technologist coming together to share thoughts. And I think everyone shares the same enthusiasm on what that future might lead. And I'm sure there's a lot more conversation and co-creation that will happen in this particular space. Probably this is only chapter 1 of a multi-chapter book that we're writing together. So with that, thank you so much. And let me pass everyone back to Kevin.
Okay, thank you very much. I think time flies when everyone is having fun, as usual. So actually, I originally want to do two hours, but I think we have time limits for that. So basically, I think there's still some questions that are not pretty answered. I think they're in the chat group. I tried my best to answer. I think there's still some on the Q&A box. So to those who asked the question, do not worry. I've actually left the BAS email over there, hello@singaporeblockchain.org. Feel free to send, same questions that you have, feel free to send them over to that email. We will try to answer those questions with the panel offline because we are still here. The panel doesn't disappear. So the thing is that we will have those answered offline. We will have a recording of today's panel on our YouTube, the Blockchain Association of Singapore YouTube channel. We will also then have those answers to those questions posted on that particular channel. So watch for those. We will cover all corners for you. Yeah, once again, thank you very much. First and foremost, thank you to our panelists over today, right? And of course, the amazing moderation by Howie, right? Given the short, kind of like limited period of time, and to all the panelists for sharing your thoughts and also your expertise. Really thankful from Blockchain Association of Singapore, and also to the attendees, right? Thank you for taking time off on a rather wet Thursday afternoon, right? To actually attend to this particular webinar. Stay tuned. We will have still more new panels and as well as webinars released in the next couple of weeks. As I mentioned, the legal one is up and coming, so watch for that. We will have a technical one coming up after that as well, and many others, right? So today we are talking about art, and then I'm quite sure some of you are very interested. What about games, right? Games and collectibles and things like that. So that will be covered by a panel by itself. And last but not least, right, we talk about people selling the art, the content creators. We will have a panel that we bring the buyers. So these are the folks that are willing to fork $1 million, $2 million, right? We want to know why, right? Why do you willing to spend $3 million to buy a piece of art? So we want to hear the thoughts from such folks as well. So stay tuned. Whole series of webinars coming out covering different angles, right? But once again, thank you everyone. We shall call a close to the webinar. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.